We read the continuation of yesterday's gospel about the multiplication of the loaves. You remember, pagkatapos pa lang nilang pakainin ang 5,000 people, St. Mark tells us Jesus instructed His disciples to serve the people in groups of 50 to 100. Sabihin na nating groups of 100. 5,000 divided by 100, 50 pa rin yun. He would still have needed at least 50 volunteers in order to do the serving. They must have felt so exhausted because they still had to gather the fragments of leftover afterwards. And remember, Jesus Himself had taught the people during the whole day before the feeding. Normally, in other stories, it is the disciples who organize what I call an escape boat in order to sneak Jesus out and prevent Him from getting crushed by the demanding crowds, lalo na kapag medyo unruly na sila. But this time, baliktad. What happens is the opposite. Mark tells us Jesus Himself made His disciples get into the boat. And He instructed them na mauna na daw sila to precede Him to the other side of the lake in the town of Bethsaida. Taga doon kasi sina Peter and Andrew, magkapatid. And then Jesus dismissed the crowd Himself. And so I imagine Him, pagod na pagod, but very happy that the people were at least going back to their homes satisfied. They were both spiritually and physically satisfied. Spiritually, from being nourished by the Word of God, and physically, from being nourished physically with the 5 loaves and 2 fish that had been served to them. But wait, what does He do after He dismisses the crowd? Instead of immediately going to the town of Bethsaida to meet the disciples, sabi ni St. Mark, He went off to the mountain to pray, to be by Himself, to pray. And look what follows after the praying. First, even though the boat that carried the disciples was already far out on the sea, Mark tells us Jesus saw that they were tossed about while rowing because the wind was against them. Ang layo na nila. How could He see them? Secondly, Jesus came toward them. Naglalakad sa tubig, walking on the sea. And thirdly, Jesus got into the boat, and the moment sumakay siya sa bangka, huminto. The wind died down. Maybe we can call these 3 the effects of only one cause, the effects of prayer. Ang epekto ng panalangin sa buhay natin. Let's go back to the first. Paano niya nalaman? How did He know that they were in a state of distress while crossing the sea? Alam niyo ho, one of the most concrete effects of prayer is the heightening of our sensitivity, especially to people who are connected to us spiritually. Mga taong may kinalaman sa buhay natin. Ako, I remember, ang aking yumaong mother, my late mother, she used to tell me when she was still alive that sometimes while she was at prayer, she could feel that one or another of my brothers or sisters was undergoing a problem or a crisis. And then one day or two later, she would confirm it. Well, Jesus himself is often described as having compassion on some of the people he met. And I think what heightened his sensitivity was prayer. Prayer must have made him very spiritually sensitive. Now for the second, Jesus comes down to respond to his disciples who were in a state of distress. Prayer does not only make us sensitive, it also gives us the courage to face the many trials of life, or even to accompany people who are struggling with the storms of life. Sabi ni St. Mark, Jesus was alone on the shore walking. And then he was seen walking on the sea, naglalakad sa tubig. The image that St. Mark is portraying is para bang ako nai-imagine ko, sometimes the Buddha is portrayed like that, parang half open yung mata and in a deep state of contemplation. That's the kind of image that I get here of Jesus absorbed in prayer. Muntik na silang malampasan habang naglalakad sa tubig, and they thought he was a ghost. Well, one of the most palpable effects of prayer is, as expressed by the famous prayer, it is able to grant us serenity. The serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to be able to know the difference. Thirdly, sabi ng gospel, as soon as Jesus got into the boat with them, the wind died down. Huminto ang bagyo. Now, our first reading from the first letter of St. John is somehow expressing this differently. St. John says, there is no fear. Walang takot ang taong nagmamahal. There is no fear in love. Perfect love drives away, casts out all fear. It means to grow in prayer is to soak in the love of God that alone can drive away your fears in life. Cast out all our fears. Ganon din ang sinasabi ni St. Peter in his first letter of Peter, chapter 5, verse 7. And we can end with that. The line that says, cast all your fears, cast all your cares to God because He cares for you.